Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier. You know, for many years, more than I care to remember, I've pinched from geography to present an analogy to classes for dramatic changes in history. The creation of a mountain range, the eruption of a volcano, an earthquake. I would even draw them on the board. Because it's like that in history too, when forces for change push up against forces for keeping things exactly as they are. And I think it offers a good way of thinking about the Balkans. Two tectonic plates rubbing against each other, the Ottoman Empire and Balkan nationalism, or else Austria-Hungary and Serb nationalism, or else Austria-Hungary and Russia. The result, a volcanic eruption or an earthquake, followed by a tsunami. That is, the July Crisis and World War I. That's the Balkans at the turn of the century. Nationalist forces pushing hard against the Ottoman Empire, the sick man of Europe, and two other empires struggling to maintain good health, the Austro-Hungarian and Russian empires. And the real epicenter for these forces was Bosnia-Herzegovina. For it was Bosnia-Herzegovina that the Ottomans were forced to hand over to Austria-Hungary, and that Serbia, backed by Russia, sought for itself. And of course, it was in Sarajevo that Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated. So the Balkans really is at the epicenter of things. With Turkey's hold on the Balkan states weakening, Austria-Hungary sees an opportunity to make gains. But at the same time, it's worried about nationalism taking hold in the Balkans and threatening its own multinational empire. It's particularly worried about Serbia getting too strong, as there are millions of Serbs within its multinational empire. Russia too is looking to fish in troubled waters. It hoped to take control of the Straits and Constantinople, now Istanbul, seen as the key to the gates of the Russian house, and a long-held prize for Russia. It was through the Straits that almost 40% of all Russia's exports and 75% of its grain exports passed. While at the same time, Russia sees itself as the natural protector of all Slavs, and Slavs populate the Balkan states. Pan-Slavism was increasing in strength in Russia, so strong that the Tsar couldn't ignore it. And Germany, though it tried, it couldn't stand aside from the rivalry. The Congress of Berlin in 1878, which followed Russia's intervention in the Balkans, was an attempt to reach an accommodation between Russia and Austria-Hungary, but it only provided a temporary truce, failing to resolve the fundamental issues, and it left Russia aggrieved with Germany, which was of course allied with Austria-Hungary. And in the 1908-9 Bosnian crisis, in backing Austria-Hungary, Germany threatened war with Russia. Germany also comes into play with the Berlin-Baghdad Railway. And there was also the crisis of 1913, when Otto von Sanders was sent to command the German military mission in Constantinople. France's interest in the Balkans was essentially financial. French investments accounted for 70 to 80% of debt in the region. Ottoman debt, but also Serbian and Bulgarian debt. Britain was concerned about the Straits. But it was actually Russia that it was most concerned with. Such were the complications of the region. Now, there's a lengthy list of crises and wars in the Balkans. The Russo-Turkish wars of 1806-12 and 1828-9, the Crimean War of 1853-6, the Eastern Crisis of 1875-8, the Serbo-Bulgarian War of 1885, the Bosnian Crisis of 1908-9, and the Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913. I'll bet you don't know some of the earlier ones, and they're not directly important. But if you want some brief reading on them, just email me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com and I'll send you my notes. And don't worry, you won't be on any email list. I don't work that way. And at least by including them here, you will fully realise that the Balkans had been a problem for a long, long time. But I think one of the most important questions you can ask yourself in history, and it's a very simple one, is so what? And in this case, so what's important about these crises? Here's some more specific questions you should ask. How was the Ottoman Empire weakened? How was Austria-Hungary put under increasing pressure? What was Austria-Hungary's and Russia's interest? And at what points did Austria-Hungary and Russia clash? And why? Who gained the most? And how serious were these clashes and their consequences? How did Germany become involved in the Balkans, and with what consequences? What were British and French interests or concerns in the region? And as you can see on this slide, I use these questions as the base for a notes framework. And with a good set of notes, you really have the Balkans as a factor covered. So, I hope that gives you a fruitful way into thinking about the Balkans as a factor in explaining World War I. And I think it's the key factor. And as you can see, there are actually tectonic plates in the Balkan region. So I'm not as crazy as you might have been thinking. If I've convinced you of that, you might be interested in tutorials. If you are, just get your parents to contact me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com and we'll see if we can work something out. I charge what's reasonable and I adjust it to what parents can afford. So please don't worry about costs. I do this because I love history and I love to teach. But let me end by thanking you for listening. And let me also wish you the best of luck with your studies. Cheers.